This is Lanhydrock House in Cornwall. It's one of the most exciting and interesting old houses that I've ever visited, and it's inspired a lot of my writing. It's particularly inspired What Manor of Murder, and I'm going to read from the first chapter to you now. This is Chapter 1, The Curse of Old Bramblehead. The trouble with mysteries is this, said Horatio bleakly, pulling the sucked remains of an aniseed ball from his mouth so he could make his point more clearly. The harder you wish for something ripplingly exciting to happen, the less likely it is that anything will happen at all. Umbrellas work in much the same way. There's always more chance of rain if you don't take your umbrella than if you do. It was late September, and the Bleakley brothers were travelling by motor car to the home of their aunt and uncle for the Michaelmas weekend. They were warmly wrapped up in long overcoats and scarves, and each wore his striped school cap. Outside, the sky was leaden, and a driving rain battered against the windows of the car. "It's all well and good you saying that," replied Eustace Bleakley patiently, "but if a fellow isn't paying proper attention to what's going on around him, then half a dozen mysteries could whiz past undetected. Let's not forget how I solved the mystery of Piggy Patterson's disappearing chocolate biscuits." "They were only disappearing because Piggy was eating them," snorted Horatio. "Yes, but in his sleep," protested Eustace. "It took an ingenious bit of detective work to hit upon that solution." "Solution," laughed Horatio, rolling his eyes. "Piggy woke up every morning surrounded by biscuit crumbs. Even the most pudding-headed nincompoop could have solved that puzzle." It was clear they were not destined to agree, so Eustace helped himself to an aniseed ball, sank back in his seat, and considered the very best way to make a mystery happen, even if a mystery showed no sign of wanting to happen. Eustace was rather taller for his age than was quite usual, and this he attributed to superior intelligence and a reluctance to play sports. He had a long face and brown hair, entirely straight, save for a cowlick at the fringe which interrupted the uniformity of his face, and which he was at constant pains to tame. Horatio, 3 minutes younger and 3 inches shorter than his brother, was a sturdy boy with untidy hair who prized sports above studies. Though the brothers were separated in age by no more than 180 seconds, Eustace was known at school as Bleakley Major, a title in which he revelled, and Horatio Bleakley Minor, a title which he loathed. It was tradition that the far-flung members of the family should descend on Bleakley Manor once a year at Michaelmastide, and as Eustace had done well in his Latin exams, the boys' parents had arranged for a chauffeur in a gleaming black motor car to collect them from boarding school. As the car raced along the narrow country lanes, splashing through deep puddles, a thought occurred to Eustace, and he slipped an envelope from his blazer pocket. He removed a folded sheet of mauve writing paper, headed with the Bleakley family crest of 2 black crows above crossed swords. "Bleakley Manor, Ludonlye, Fenshire. Eustace and Horatio, your father has sent a telegram to inform me that you will be arriving on the 28th of September by motor car from your school. Why he has run to the expense of hiring such a vehicle, I really cannot say, but I imagine there must be a reason for it. Whatever reason that might be is of no consequence, but I would be grateful if you would stop at the railway station at Brockton Mannerley at 3 o'clock to collect Master Oliver Davenport, who will also be staying with us for the Michaelmas weekend. Master Davenport is a poor unfortunate, and we must take pity on the boy, no matter how inconvenient that may be. Please be certain not to bring any unnecessary dirt to the house. Aunt Maud." "Is Master Oliver Davenport an orphan, do you think?" asked Horatio, as Eustace refolded the letter and returned it to his pocket. "I'm rather afraid he is," said Eustace. "Aunt Maud generally means orphan when she writes poor unfortunate with capital letters." Leaning forward, he wound down the connecting window to speak to the chauffeur. "Don't forget we're collecting Master Oliver Davenport from the railway station. It isn't very far out of our way." "Very good, sir," said the chauffeur. The down train had just departed from Brockton Mannerley as the car arrived, and a billowing cloud of white steam hung heavy above the station buildings. A small boy with a shock of curly red hair was waiting patiently outside in the rain, surrounded by an assortment of bags and battered suitcases. Eustace and Horatio climbed out of the motor car to greet the new arrival. Eustace walked ahead, as seemed right and proper for a boy 3 minutes his brother's senior. "You must be Master Oliver Davenport," he called, opening out an umbrella. "I'm Bleakley Major, and this is my brother Bleakley Minor." "We're not at school now," tutted Horatio. "We only need our first names." He smiled at the newcomer. "I'm Horatio, and this blighter is my brother Eustace." "Hello, very pleased to meet you," said Master Oliver Davenport, all the time jabbing vigorously at his right eye with the corner of a grubby pocket handkerchief. "I would shake hands, you know, only I've got a smut in my eye, and it's absolute agony." "Were you leaning out of the compartment window?" asked Horatio. "I was," said the boy. "You would have had your head sliced off if there'd been a train coming the other direction," said Horatio cheerfully. "Heaps of boys have had their heads hacked off by passing steam trains. They're always warning us of it at school." "At least my eye wouldn't be hurting if my head had come off," said Master Oliver Davenport philosophically, prodding his eye again with the grimy handkerchief. "There, I think that's shifted it." The rain was falling heavily now, and the chauffeur took care of Master Oliver Davenport's luggage as the boys climbed gratefully into the warm motor car, slamming the doors shut behind them. "Have you had to travel very far from your school?" asked Eustace, as the engine hummed once more and the car pulled slowly away from the station. 2 hours and 3 trains, replied Master Oliver Davenport. "The more distance there is between me and those tormentors of souls who pass themselves off as teachers, the better." He grinned at the 2 boys. "It seems your family has taken pity on me. Are they frightfully rich, your aunt and uncle?" Eustace considered it poor form to discuss the wealth of his relatives, but as Master Oliver Davenport was shortly to arrive at Bleakley Manor, and the enormous wealth of the family would become manifestly obvious, he broke his golden rule. "Absolutely rolling in cash," he said. "Oodles of the stuff. Uncle Max is chairman of Bleakley Bottling, Inc. They make pickles, you know." "Cripes," said Master Oliver Davenport, his eyes wide with surprise. "We have their mustard piccalilli in our sandwiches at school, but very thinly spread, more's the pity." "It's the mustard piccalilli that made the Bleakley fortune," said Eustace. "The family hardly had a penny in the bank before Uncle Max took up pickling. Bleakley Manor was practically falling down around his ears." Master Oliver Davenport smiled. "Just the sort of rich old cove who gets bumped off in a ripping murder mystery. You know, with some treacherous relative hoping to get their hands on the loot." He proffered a paper bag. "Peanut brittle?"